Chicago has long carried the heavy reputation of being one of America's most violent cities, a label that is both true and misleading. While the city as a whole has seen homicides fall by 25% since 2020, certain neighborhoods remain overwhelmed by entrenched cycles of crime, poverty, and lack of opportunity. According to the University of Chicago Crime Lab, the gap between the safest and most dangerous communities is staggering. Some neighborhoods suffer homicide rates 68 times higher than others just miles away. As Labor Day weekend approached, these conditions, mixed with summer heat, large public gatherings, and long-standing gang rivalries, created a volatile environment. Historically, holiday weekends in Chicago often bring spikes in shootings as tensions boil over. Residents braced themselves for what they feared might be another violent holiday stretch, and tragically, their fears were realized. From Friday evening through Monday night, 8 people lost their lives and at least 50 more were wounded in dozens of separate shootings scattered across the city. Gunfire erupted at block parties, on busy streets, and in residential areas, shattering the sense of celebration that the holiday weekend was meant to bring. The toll was worse than the previous Labor Day, when 7 people were killed and just over 20 wounded. Ambulances raced non-stop through neighborhoods like Englewood, Austin, and Garfield Park, where violence has become painfully familiar. For the families of victims, the weekend became a nightmare of sirens, police tape, and unanswered questions. National media seized on the story, amplifying the chaos. Once again, Chicago's violence was thrust into the spotlight, symbolizing, fairly or unfairly, America's broader struggle with urban crime. Chicago police launched investigations into each of the incidents, but solving these crimes is never simple. Many shootings in the city are tied to gang disputes, retaliation cycles, or personal conflicts that erupt quickly and fade just as fast. Witnesses are often reluctant to come forward, fearing retaliation or distrustful of law enforcement. The Chicago Police Department highlighted broader trends to contextualize the weekend's violence. Despite the horrific spike, overall murders in 2024 were down. Through August, 278 homicides had been recorded, a 31% drop from the same period in 2023. Police and criminologists pointed to better community engagement, targeted patrols, and declining gang cohesion as factors in the reduction. Still, the disparities remain sharp. The Rochester Institute of Technology noted that Chicago's homicide rate in 2023 stood at 21 per 100,000 residents, lower than some other major U.S. cities, but still painfully high in areas hardest hit. Investigators understood the weekend shootings not as isolated tragedies, but as part of a larger pattern that has gripped Chicago for decades. The motives behind the shootings varied from case to case: gang rivalries, personal vendettas, and random acts of violence. But beyond the individual incidents, a political motive began shaping the narrative. The president, in remarks to reporters, declared, "We're going in," referring to sending National Guard troops to Chicago. Though he offered no timeline, the statement carried heavy implications, suggesting the federal government might bypass state and local leaders. The president also argued that federal intervention was necessary to restore order in a city he described as spiraling out of control. Local officials pushed back immediately. The mayor signed an order explicitly prohibiting Chicago police from collaborating with military personnel on patrols or immigration enforcement. "Police will not be deputized to do traffic stops and checkpoints for the president," Johnson said, calling the Trump administration out of control. Governor J.B. 2 dismissed the idea of troops in Chicago, insisting that the solution to crime was rooted in police work, community investment, and trust building, not federal militarization. "Any person that gets killed or hurt is a victim of crime," Pritzker said, "but the way to do it is with police officers, not with troops." Thus, the holiday shootings became more than a local tragedy. They became a national flashpoint, fueling debates about federal authority, urban safety, and the role of government in policing America's cities. The official numbers paint a picture of progress. Chicago has fewer homicides today than in 2020, and year-to-date murders are down sharply from last year. But for residents living in neighborhoods scarred by gunfire, the numbers feel hollow. Families who lost loved ones over Labor Day see no comfort in statistics. Their grief is permanent. Chicago remains trapped in a paradox. On one hand, crime is falling overall. On the other, holiday weekends and vulnerable neighborhoods continue to erupt in deadly violence, keeping the city under constant scrutiny. The Labor Day shootings of 2024 reveal not only the fragility of progress, but also the political fault lines that widen every time tragedy strikes. The ending, therefore, is not a conclusion but a question. Can Chicago break the cycle of holiday bloodshed and neighborhood inequality, or will it remain the backdrop for America's ongoing war of words over crime, justice, and control?